let's get into building our button component. Now we're going to base it on our pip component, right? This was our template we created previously, template component. So it already has padding built in, a standard padding. It's already got our design tokens. Now we're going to extend this by creating a component from it. So if I create a new component, on top of it, you'll see that inside, nested inside, we have the pip, but this a new one is going to be called button, because this is our button component. Now, the button component has styling, so this is where we're going to apply the styling, right? So we need a background, and we're going to pick a background fill. Here we have our palette, as we discussed previously, right? So these are our colors. Now, you know, the theory we have is that we shouldn't be directly linking to the static palette. This should be linked to the named palettes that we have a more meaningful token system. So we're not going to use Grey 90, which is a possible background for our button. We're going to have to abstract it and add a new variable. So let's go to our color group. I'm going to create another color, and I'm going to call it color button BG. I'm going to call it default because there are a lot of states to a button, which we'll cover in another video, and the default background for the button background color is going to be Grey 90. So now we have our token. So now we've given it a name, basically. Now we can close our variables, and we can now use that. So there we go. Color button BG default. Okay, now it's starting to look a little bit more like a button, but maybe we'd like some rounded corners. And we're going to have to use this corner radius now. Let's check what we want. Let's say, do we want it to be 8? That's like a nice rounded button. Let's just say we want it to be 8, but we can't use a loose number like this. It must be a variable. So let's add our variable. Now we're going to create a new group. So let's create a variable. This is going to be a number, and the group is going to be just called shape. I mean, there's different ways you can name these things, but I'm going to use it. I'm going to use shape. Border radius M, I'm going to call it, because there'll be different sizes. But the basic one, medium, is going to be, I can go now to shape. Here's my border radius. I'm going to call it 8. Now, I don't want to link this to my spacing tokens, even though we have an 8 in there, because this is not a spacing token. This is a shape number. This is not a space. We could link it, but it's not it's not necessarily linked logically. So now we'll replace our border radius number with the border radius token. There we go. So now this is also in the design system, and we have a new style guide variable. So this is our basic button. Now it's pretty simple, but we're going to add some things to it later on by enhancing the pip component, which this will inherit, and we'll also add states in another video. But for right now, we've got our basic button component, and let's go ahead and move on to the input component so that we can start to build larger patterns.